Hello, welcome to today's episode of Dear Timothy Ministries Stories. I'm so excited to bring you this particular edition from the beautiful city of Accra, Ghana. And I'm here today with Apostle Josiah. It's been a beautiful off-the-camera discussion we've had, and I'm trusting that that's going to be very inspirational to you as you listen to today's episode. Apostle Josiah, I want to welcome you.
Thank you.
Welcome to Dear Timothy Stories, and you have a very interesting ministry story that I'm looking forward to hearing from you. So just let's start with your experience, your call to ministry. At what point did you realize your call?
Okay, so originally, let me backtrack a bit. So originally, we were in the Church of Pentecost in Ghana. My father was a deacon there. I played many roles growing up, in the Church of Pentecost. And when I was in junior high school, I used to be the prayer secretary of our scripture union in school. Went to secondary school, was an executive of the scripture union in secondary school. Even in the university, I was an executive of UCF, Accra City campus of the University of Ghana. And so I've always had my feet squarely in and around ministry. I remember somewhere in class 3, I went to my father and I told him, you know what, I think I want to be a pastor. At the time, he himself was not even a pastor because he hadn't started the ministry yet. He was still a deacon in Church of Pentecost. He looked at me, he just smiled and said, I know, but for now, just focus on education for me, And so I've always been in and around ministry. But personally, I had my encounter with God somewhere around level 200 of the university. That's what I would say was the turning point for my ministry, where God spoke to me clearly about what I was to do and the assignment for me. Okay,
let's so obviously you grew up, like as pastor's child. Let's say this. How was it like for you? Were you called into full-time directly?
Okay, so I after school in 2011, I was ordained into the ministry, but I didn't do full-time. I combined the ministry with working in the bank. I worked in the bank for a number of years. And I felt it was critical for my formation and my development, that phase.
Talk us through that, because we have, I have a different experience. I went into full-time after my university. So I want to know how did that work? When you say that was important for your formation, how would you explain that?
There's so many things I learned in my days in the bank that have become part of me on the ministry journey. So for example, no matter who you are as a pastor of a church, people calling you daddy and pastor and all that, when you step foot in the banking hall, you are somebody's your client, and you need to provide customer service. Even when you are angry, you need to keep your composure and still serve them. And I always tell people that taught me a lot of humility at that level, because no matter who you are, you need to calm down and keep your composure and deal with people and their issues.
That's interesting. It's interesting that your lesson of humility came from the bank. And so you would say. Was there any other lesson?
Yes. There were quite a number of lessons. It gave me leadership exposure. Because I entered the bank as a graduate trainee. So I didn't go through the normal route. So we had to go through different departments of the bank, doing different things, meeting different heads, being mentored along the journey. And that really gave me a broad spectrum of understanding of what leadership is from each of their perspectives. And every time I had the opportunity to ask them a question, my question I always ask them, and some of them are surprised at the question, is what keeps them awake at night? Because you're a leader, everything seems to be going well. You are at the top. People are supposed to be working for you down there. Your eyes are not everywhere. You are not everywhere. And so what keeps you awake? How do you know that everything will go as you have set it, as the system you have set it? And for me, that leadership exposure really helped me.
So what was the answer to that question? What did they tell you keeps them awake?
One of them, I remember him clearly. He was the executive director of the retail banking in Stanchart those days. He told me what kept him awake at night is not waking up one day, to realize that somebody sitting in a branch somewhere has cost him his job.
Wow.
And so he's always thinking through, what have we done wrong? What could go wrong? What could go wrong? And he's always trying to mitigate risks. Okay. That was his biggest threat, and that kept him awake always.
Interesting. Yeah, interesting. I mean, thinking about this and looking at the scriptures, you would realize that actually the children of Israel costed Moses' leadership.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, I've never thought of it from that perspective.
Absolutely. In fact, I was speaking on it yesterday evening.
Okay, go ahead.
Where they had done so many things, and God Himself had described them as a stiff-necked people. Mm-hmm. And in Numbers 20 now, after all that God had done for them, they were crying and screaming, "We want water, we want water." And Moses in the past has struck a rock to give you water. So it's not like it's not within his power and God's ability to do it. He's done it before. And yet they came at him, criticized him to the extent that the man became frustrated when God gave him specific instructions to speak to the rock. Yeah. He maybe was angry, or maybe was presumptive. He had done it before. So he struck it twice and water came. Although water came now, God was angry with him, all because of the people.
Yeah,
so sometimes as a leader, your people can cost you. The people cost Saul too, if you think about it.
Yeah.
He said, "I did what I did because I feared the people."
Yeah.
So
interesting. Yeah. Interesting. Now, so that means that your corporate experience, because thinking of it, you also realize that even as a pastor, sometimes people think all we do is to just preach. But, as a pastor, you're really in charge in building.
Exactly.
You're doing banking. Because if you don't have any basic idea of at least what banking, frugality, and all of those things will, you realize that ministry money is just going.
Exactly.
And sometimes people don't understand why you're putting some measures in place, because they feel, the money is there, why don't we spend it, and all the rest. Yeah. So when you got your call, how was it? Just talk us through that. How did you now leave the banking?
Right. So around that time, I was still pastoring this branch of the ministry. Okay. So I was doing that and then doing the banking at the same time. And I felt God speaking to me, the time is coming, the time is coming, the time is coming, you'd have to leave. So what I did was I started speaking to a few mentors I knew around. I wanted to pick their brain. What do they think? I feel like God is bringing me to the place. That was after 5 years of banking, to a place where He's asking me to go full time now. And of course, interestingly, some of them gave me human advice. Take your time. There's how would you take care of your family? The church depends on the money you're bringing, all those things. Many people gave me different advice. One person gave me an advice that really spoke to me, and he used a football analogy. He used Lionel Messi, and he told me that one of the reasons why Lionel Messi is the best footballer in the world is because he has tunnel vision for football. That's all he does. He doesn't add music to football. He doesn't add anything else. Exactly. That's all he does. And he will do it till he retires and probably do other things. But as long as this is what he's doing, he gives all his focus and his attention to it. And although I didn't leave immediately after that, it's been one thing that has really stuck with me and has shaped how I do ministry. To not allow other things to take the place of the ministry and to focus fully on the assignment God has given me.
Yeah, and that's important. I want you to talk us through that, because I also realized, I think I was telling someone yesterday that, there are people who, of course, are graced to do bivocational ministry and the rest. But I just feel like if you're really not graced in that dimension, why don't you just focus on these and ensure that you excel?
Exactly.
Talk us through your thoughts on what focus would be in ministry for you. Just how that would be.
For me, focus is when God calls any man, God gives you specific assignments. God gives you, He may not tell you the intricacies of every step of your story.
That's right.
But He will give you a broad picture of where you're going. And that becomes the goal that you aspire to. There's a temptation to peek at what other people are doing that they call success, and to look at the systems others have developed they call success. But if God hasn't called you to do that, just stick with what you're doing. It may take time, but stick with it. God knows why He's giving you that, and focus on the goal He's giving you. Focus on what He's telling you to do at every step of the way. And at the end of the day, He who called you is faithful enough to bring you to the place of performance.
So how did your how did your family take your leaving the bank to go in full time?
So I'll tell you how I left. It's an interesting story.
Yeah.
I moved from Standard Chartered to Access Bank. I was there for about 11 months. And I was sitting behind the computer one day and I heard God tell me it's time to leave.
Wow.
At that time, we were working on a promo for the bank. I remember clearly. It was a deposit promo. And my team was in charge of it, myself and my boss. We had drafted how the promo was going to look, gotten regulatory approval for all those things. And God said it's time to leave. So right there in the bank, I typed my resignation letter.
Wow.
I printed it with their printer, used their pen to sign, and submitted it to my boss. When I did, he couldn't believe it. He said, like, has anybody offended you? Should we give you a new role? Should we increase your salary? That's where I knew it was time.
Wow.
You see, because one of the things my dad taught me is that God's ways are not our ways.
That's right.
And he operates on a dimension that is not available to men.
Mm-hmm.
So if God asks you to do something and every man approves of it, it's a danger that is not God. Right? In danger, it's not God.
Yeah.
But if God gives you a specific instruction and men, rise up, many people are giving you opposition, it could be that God is actually speaking you and leading you into that way. So the more they tried to keep me there, the more I became confident that it was time to leave.
Wow.
So I left.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the struggle people have actually, in ministry. Sometimes it's about not being able to make that decision, especially when God is calling them.
Yes.
Now, we're going to have.
So you're saying the family.
Yeah.
How did my family? Yeah. My dad was excited. My dad was excited.
Wow,
he said, "I've been waiting for this day." My mom was not. Oh, wow. My mom was not happy about it. My mom was, because my dad and mom went through it. They went through a lot of struggles coming up to bring the ministry to where it had been at that point.
Yeah.
And in her mind, she's a mother. She's thinking, I don't want you to go through what we went through. Sure. So now that you have a constant, good source of income for you, your family, even we get to benefit from it. Why don't you stay there for some time? At least you're still doing well managing the two, so stay there for some time. My dad always told her, you don't understand what God is doing. Yeah. So just leave him and let him come.
Yeah. So I think I had that challenge also. I'd finished school, graduated, and I was doing youth service, compulsory 1 year youth service. I was to go home. I never really wanted to go into full time because, my dad went through a lot of struggle. I felt I'll just be a university professor, support the students. And then interestingly, everybody was preparing their CV. Okay. Where would they get to jobs, after youth service. And for the first time, it just dawned on me that I don't even know names of companies. I don't know where I want to work. Right. I just okay, I'll do my master's and go back. And then I was praying, and then God says, I'll have need of your certificates. I was like, okay. Yeah. And my dad wasn't 100% excited about it. He was like, I know you are called, but go and work for some time. But it was so strong. Yeah. It was so strong. Now, getting into the ministry, how did you manage that transition? So there's something I'm looking to get that I want people to get. I realize that sometimes people come from like a banking setup like that, where you get up in the morning, you know what you're going to do, you know the project you're going to do. Now, all of a sudden, you're in full-time ministry. Right. How did you ensure that you had a work schedule how did you manage that transition from having to resume in the morning, 7 o'clock, you're drafting papers, now you're in ministry? How did you manage that?
That's a great question. And I, for the first few months, I didn't know what to do. Because we spent like 2 hours in traffic just to get to work in Ghana. Okay. And that 2 hours to come back home. So my schedule has been the same schedule meticulously. I follow it through daily. In fact, interestingly, there are times I'm going to work, but I've picked extra clothes because after work I have to go and preach somewhere. Yeah. So I'll change in the office bathroom and then just move with my team and go and preach somewhere else. So I had this system, and then right after I finished my first master's degree, God called me and I came. So for the first few months, I was struggling to adjust. But then it hit me that if you had a system that you keyed into whilst you were in the bank, you must have a system that you key into whilst you are here. And suddenly, so I drafted a system that I follow. Time for prayer, time for Bible study, time for meetings. And I follow that meticulously up to today. Oh. So it's not every day, for example, you come and find me in the office because there's a schedule that I follow systematically daily. And the people around me know and key into that system. Because I feel like if you don't understand that, full time will simply become a fool's time for you. You just have that time to waste and not really achieve much or do anything.
I think that's important. Do you mind talking us through your schedule, not like your personal schedule, but do you mind? Let's say, okay, I'm a pastor. I'm listening to you right now, and I'm like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So how do I go about that?
Okay.
Would you want to just talk us through? Imagine if you're having a conversation with a pastor. Would you want to talk us through? Yeah, these are some of the things you can do. Yeah, so that because I think that's very important. You know, I was on my way to Ghana. I think 2 days ago, I was thinking, how can I become more of a better leader? And I was saying, I think there are two things. If a leader can manage his time, and if a leader can manage people, those are the two critical things you need to be able to manage. Your time, first of all, and then the people around you. So talk to us about that whole thing.
So I'll just maybe highlight a few of the things I do. So on Mondays, for example, are my off days. Because Sundays are full working days. Church is from 8 to 10:30 here, but after church you have meetings, sometimes reports from branches and all that. And I usually leave here around 5-6 p.m. when I come to church in the morning. So Mondays are my downtime. I don't talk to anybody. I don't see anybody. I rest. Tuesdays are my office hours for meeting people, church people and other people. So Tuesdays I'm here usually from, let's say, 9 o'clock, and I leave here after 3 because my children will be coming home and I need to be home for them. And that's the thing, you need to find balance between pastoring and playing the role at home as well. Thursdays I'm here with the team, but Thursdays we don't meet anybody. We come to work. We come to do ministry work. What is happening in the branches, chasing documents. Let's say people are about to get married. There are documents, gazettes, structuring their counseling hours, all those kinds of works for their ministry itself. We do them on Thursdays. Wednesdays are typically for my school assignments and all that. So I just do school assignments and all that on Wednesdays. Fridays I have lectures that I attend. Saturdays we come and ensure that everything we need for Sunday service is in place, and then the cycle just kicks in and continues.
So it's also very important to have a structure of this, I do this, then. I think just that structure helps you to be able to know what to do. You're waking up, right? All right, so let's talk about your dad and the period. How was ministry alongside your dad? How was it
when he was around? Yes, it was amazing. It was amazing. So like I've always said, he was for me my spiritual father that I have known. If I have issues about ministry, I have questions, he's the one I go to. And for me, he had more confidence in me than I had in myself. That's one of the things I always tell people. He will push you. Let's say you've preached and everybody says, what an amazing sermon. Like, we've been blessed. When the adulation and clapping and everything is done, he'll call you one-on-one. He's made his notes. Oh, my son, you did well, but I think this statement you made, if you had made it in a better way, it would have been better. It would have been more respectful to the people.
My dad understood about be respectful on the pulpit.
Hand mannerisms, that they don't use your left hand on people because some of their elders in church. So some of these things he will tell you, you don't command them like they are your children. Calm down. I know you're anointed, but keep it under control. So after every ministration like that, he would call me and then we'll have a conversation. We'll laugh about it. I'll pick my notes, but I improve. I get better. Ministry with him was very, very, very great.
I think that's interesting because I think that's one of the benefits I got from my dad too. And I think that's helped me on the pulpits because he keeps saying, no, you see, these people are older. Because I realized that not every young person actually can pastor a congregation that cuts across generations. And I was thinking about it. In my congregation, I have people that are way older than me. I have older people. I have my age mates. I have younger people. But I also realized that in some ministries, they're doing very well. But it's an age group
within a certain
generation. So I was thinking about it, and I was like, it's not every young person that has the ability to manage a church that's got 3 generations in one, and they all equally respect you, not just because of someone, but because and that's important about how we talk on the pulpit. It's very important how we come in. I've never seen the left hand on. Maybe I'll check. I'll watch my videos. Watch my videos.
So one of the things he taught me to do it's become instinctive. I usually will now hold the microphone with the left hand rather and try and do more, because I'm a very expressive person. One way or the other, my hands will go up. So even when I forget and I become conscious, I just switch and then do with the right hand instead of the left.
Okay. So having such an experience, how was this transition for you?
Right.
So 2 things I want us to measure on is handling the transition process, and then handling your transition as a leader, and how you're able to just manage that. So that's where we're going to. So how was handling this transition for you?
So it was tough, but we have to be strong for our people. You need to be the strongest person in the room, the one that encourages everybody, the one that steadies the ship, and lets everybody knows that God has called him, but there is hope. We are going somewhere. So you grieve privately, but publicly you show strength so people can follow you. I always say he was a strategist because of the way he handled it. See, it was almost as if he knew that time was imminent, and he put things in place for that let's say organizational transition to be seamless and to just flow. But for me, losing a father, losing my spiritual father, and then losing my boss in the ministry was not easy at all. I need to now juggle all that. It was after his passing I realized the weight of what he did. See, because then now you realize he was paying these people's school fees. He encouraged them to go to school, and he's paying their fees. Some of them are now in level 400,
and they have to complete.
They have to complete. It's now on you, because you can't let his legacy just die. You need to, and then you realize the reality of the weight. It's not just about the preaching. It's not just about the church. It's about all those things he was doing. He never spoke about. Even people in his side of the family that he was, therefore he was helping, and suddenly you realize it's all on you now, So managing that was not easy, but God gave us grace, God gave us strength to be able to handle that transition.
So let's talk about transitioning. When you took over the ministry, was it a case where he knew and he had done that for you, or it was a case where because he's passed on you. How was that?
So it was in fact it was a little of both. Because he already knew that this is what was going to happen, and when I'm not there, he should take over. So about 2 years before his passing, he wasn't even coming physically to pastoral board meetings. He made me lead and chair those meetings, take reports, and then report back to him. And then he would say, okay, no, do it this way or do it that way. And he put those structures in place. Now, in our constitution as a ministry, if the general overseer leaves and there is no express, he didn't name anybody before leaving expressly. There has to be an executive council meeting that decides on one person. The person is presented to the executive council, made up of 7 people. They meet and decide. The person is presented to the general council, which is made up of all our pastors and all our deacons. And they then will now vote on that individual who must get at least 50% of the vote, 50 plus 1 of the votes, and then the person takes over. So because he put those structures in place, although he didn't name specifically, but everybody knew, kind of knew. So the executive council just picked me and present, and I'm already part of the executive council anyway. So he just picked me to the general council, and it was a unanimous decision, acceptance by everybody. So that's how come we didn't really have much of issue, because he did it both ways.
So what would you say, if you hit a transition like that, what would be your first? Are there things you would have done differently? Let's say looking back now, of course, it's like, my dad handed over ministry to me also. And my dad is still very much active. But, like we had a discussion before, I'm like, I don't think I've done so well. I'm thinking back, because there's a mental thing of, I can do this thing. You are capable. And then the ceremony passes, and then you settle down and you're having to deal with people. You have to deal with things that are not. So What do you think you would do differently for someone watching us who just got into a place of transition? Right. What would you have done differently?
So I'll probably have done something differently before the transition even occurred.
Okay.
You know, we have, let's say, 2 layers or 2 distinct groups of pastors in our ministry. We have those who are not so advanced in education, okay, but they are called anyway. Yeah. And then we have most of them who have degrees and masters and all those. Now, the 2 are not, don't always follow the same patterns. Yeah. And so leading the 2 is not always, you don't have to treat the 2 of them the same way. Yeah. You know, you have to have the wisdom and the ability to deal with the 2 different groupings. Now, maybe what I would have done differently is that whilst he was alive, I should have been closer to the other group of people.
Yeah, because you feel attracted to the people who are your
belong to my group, and all that. They see they understand the vision. You know, sometimes from where I am and from my exposure, you will think that these other people are not catching the vision, what you want to do. You know, even the ambience of the place, they don't really get it. Yes. But I realized over time that it's not really that, because they really want to do what you're doing. There are a few things here and there that if you make it. They understand it. They actually run with the vision more than you can think. So if I had the opportunity, that's
amazing, and that's true also.